during wartime, people changed their behavior and the way of consuming. Everything that is not necessary will not be
It just
consumed.
stops.
Exactly. And as much as coffee can be necessary in normal time, and when I say coffee, it's not, the coffee, the caffeine that you need in your body in the morning. It's just going in a coffee shop and sitting there and maybe reading a book or meeting some friends. And so the first few days, truly, there was nothing else that could be done. Not even posting a story or something on social media, because you can't post anything on social media when people are dying literally every day, and children and women. So you just have to contain yourself and try to run at minimum cost, and hope that the organic traffic will at least help you a bit.
This episode is proudly brought to you by Mapper Forward's workshop, It's Time to Become a Coffee Consultant. Learn how to diversify your revenue streams and create freedom from your day job while saying goodbye to that alarm clock forever by becoming a consultant within the coffee industry or directly to consumers who have shifted towards home brewing and home roasting. Protect your income from challenging times in the coffee value chain by taking this course today. Go to mapperforward.coffee/workshops or click the link in the show notes for details. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and this is episode 3 of a great 5-part series with Joseph Sayegh from Levant in Beirut. We're talking about adapting and surviving as a business in times of crisis. This particular crisis is an active war that's happening in Beirut. Levant is in the middle of this, and it's a wee baby business that's 1.5 years old. And Joseph, you've decided that you will not close this business at this point. You are keeping this business open, and we've talked about mindset and how you approach making decisions. Now let's talk about some of the decisions that you actually made and the actions that you took to keep this business moving from when the crisis that we're referring to is the war in the Middle East, and that started with Gaza because it did impact you as a business, and that those challenges continued to escalate up, starting about 6 weeks ago when Beirut started to get bombed. When you're making those decisions and you're taking those actions, I'd like to talk about the actions that you take based on like the financial decisions that you've made, the employees that you've got around you, the customers and having to consider them, what happens to your supply chain. So talk to me about the actions that you take to adapt, because I'm sure like things change around you, no?
Things escalated very quickly these last weeks in Beirut, and we had to adapt. And so at first, it was very reactive. So the first couple of days when the strikes escalated very intensively, we had closed for a couple of days. And this is like the case of every single business owner in Beirut. So for 2 days, around the end of September, everyone was closed. I actually did open a few hours on that weekend to realize that literally there was like not a single person in the street.
Everyone's scared. Everyone's staying in their homes. They don't know what's going on. Right.
It would even be a bit dangerous. So after a couple of days, we had to open back. And this is when I started taking some decisions. So the first decision that I had to take was to adapt the opening hours. So, I mean, the goal here is to reduce the cost as much as possible because of the revenues that were reduced. So first step was like, let's try to reduce as much as possible the cost. So I did reduce the opening hours. We used to open from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. because people do drink coffee in the afternoon, even in the evening here
it's different
Beirut.
in this part of the world. In the Middle East, it's very different than it is, let's say, in America or Australia. Yeah.
Peak time is between 4:30 and 7 p.m. where sometimes in the morning there's like very few customers. So I had to reduce the opening hours because unfortunately the strikes were happening mostly in the evening and at night. So Beirut was becoming a ghost town after 5 p.m. So I had to reduce my opening hours and I lost my peak time, which was more of the afternoon. So the first thing was, let's try to reduce the opening hours. Let's try to remove all the part of the stuff that have very low shelf life. So I have some types of desserts that can only stay 24 hours or 48 hours. So I had to discard those for the moment from my menu because it's very risky to have those. It will have a lot of waste. And so this is how the first few days went on, reducing working hours, reducing unnecessary stock, and then trying to survive. The difficult part about a war is that it's not just any type of crisis where you just have to find another way of consumption. For example, during COVID, maybe the first reaction would have been, let's double down on delivery and then maybe we can sell more. During wartime, people changed their behavior and the way of consuming. Everything that is not necessary will not be
It just
consumed.
stops.
Exactly. And as much as coffee can be necessary in normal time, and when I say coffee, it's not, the coffee, the caffeine that you need in your body in the morning. It's just going in a coffee shop and sitting there and maybe reading a book or meeting some friends. And so the first few days, truly, there was nothing else that could be done. Not even posting a story or something on social media, because you can't post anything on social media when people are dying literally every day, and children and women. So you just have to contain yourself and try to run at minimum cost and hope that the organic traffic will at least help you a bit. After the first week, we started every week assessing how was the week, what did we observe, how are people changing their behavior or adapting, etc. What we did realize is that many of our regulars have left Beirut and even left Lebanon.
Okay.
Some of our regulars, even though they left Beirut, they still come like once every week or 10 days to Beirut. And then when they come, they make sure to come to our place and have a coffee or pie. And we started also testing. So you need to go through this test period where, what if I open a bit later? What if I open a bit earlier? And try to see how are things moving. And so what we did realize is that after 2 or 3 weeks of the beginning of escalation, people started going back to having a coffee a bit in the afternoon. We still are very far from what was like the typical behavior before the war, but at least you can see a bit of movement in the afternoon. So we readapted again the opening hours by opening a bit later in the morning and closing a bit later in the evening. I'm lucky in Levant, or maybe I don't know if it's a luck or it's more something I had planned since the beginning, is to try to run. And this is maybe something I learned during some entrepreneurship workshops I made, to try to really run everything at minimum cost. So I have a very small team. Most of my desserts are outsourced because actually they are curated. I get each of my desserts from somewhere. So I did not have a very big inventory or pay slips to pay at the end of the month. I really designed the place to run at minimum cost. And because I live in an unstable region, because something can happen anytime. I think this is like a reflex or like a rule of thumb that can work in any business. It's always better to try to run at minimum cost and then incrementally evolve your business than, have this huge of an investment and not knowing what could happen and what risk you're taking.
Can we sit on that for a second, if you don't mind? If it sounds like what you're saying there is that a decision that you had made based on the business environment that you're in, that is unstable, you have decided that you will run your business, not necessarily bootstrapped, but you will run it very lean. You will spend where needs to be spent, but unless you need to spend, you're not going to spend. I'm a big fan of this strategy. I run my businesses this way. I've always run my businesses this way. And it sounds like this is a decision that has paid off for you when a crisis happened. Am I reading that situation correct?
100%. It would have been for me from the beginning a lot more profitable, for example, to have some sort of central kitchen or a baking corner with one or two maybe chefs or bakers who would be making all the, for example, desserts in-house. But it would have cost me so much in terms of salaries and inventory today, as well as, running the equipment and everything. So I had accepted, for example, for this part to outsource it, even though it would be less profitable. I would pay more for each dessert that I'm buying instead of having it made in-house. And this is in every single aspect. So even the coffee machine, didn't introduce it from the beginning. It was only after I was realizing that people have been asking a lot about like being able to have an espresso or a latte or a cappuccino with their sweet. Only then I introduced it, and I always try to do it this way. It's like I collect the demand on the ground. Like I see what are people asking for.
So you're listening to a customer.
I do listen to them, and only when I start getting a lot of signal, I can invest in something. This is how I invested in the coffee machine. This is how I introduced some of the items, some of the salty ones, because many people were also asking for not just sweet, for example.
They wanted savory.
Exactly, savory items. This is why also sometimes I had to introduce things maybe I was not hoping to introduce on my menu, but because the demand was so important and because I have to survive in these times, for example, people here like to have their iced latte with caramel or vanilla. And this is something I did not want to have at the beginning on my menu, but I had to introduce it because you have to also meet the customer halfway. Especially in times of crisis where you don't have the luxury to say no. Sometimes you just have to say yes, but what if we do it in a kind of discreet way? How can we do it in a way that doesn't affect our brand identity? And this is how we've been adjusting from the very beginning, the menu, the items, even the prices.
So it sounds like the strategy that you took, while you run lean, it gives you an ability to be more adaptable when you need to be adaptable, because it sounds like you're not afraid of spending money. You just want to spend money responsibly. The other model is what you see a lot of around the world, but folks, I live in Dubai. This model is rife in Dubai. And what happens is so much money is poured into these brands and the packaging and the branding and the equipment and the fit out and all of these things. And people hope to tell the customer what the customer should want. And I'm not a fan of that model. I see where it works and when it works, but you've got to have a bottomless pit of money if you want to put that approach, and you are much less agile when you have a business model like that. Would you agree, Joseph?
100%. I've learned from some previous experiences that although it's very tempting to be able to, for example, um, make big investments, because on the long term, these will mean less cost per unit, be it for packaging, be it for some machines that you're getting, etc. But sometimes you have first to prove that there is enough demand for you to make that investment. And even for something as maybe small as the takeaway cups, first I had to see like, are there going to be enough people asking for takeaway? And for the first 3-4 months, I had like just the typical brownish takeaway cups, cheapest one I found that don't burn customers' hand. And only then when I realized that, okay, I am selling a certain amount, I did work with an illustrator and designer to design some nice cups. And even when we did design them and I had to print them, there's like this thing where the more you print, the less it costs you. It's very tempting to print a huge quantity because the cost per unit becomes ridiculous. But even then, I try to resist this temptation and say to myself, I'll stick to something that seems reasonable based on the numbers I've had so far. Instead of, going crazy and buying from one big, one huge amount of cups, and then maybe realizing that maybe the size wasn't correct, or maybe that the design didn't resonate so much with people, or maybe that I needed some other texture or form for the cups. So there is so many unknowns, and because you don't know, what might come up, you try to really take the small steps, medium steps, but not very, very big steps.
Have you found that, let me ask it this way, what has been the response in your team to the actions that you've taken and the decisions that you've made?
One member of my team actually comes from the south, and
wow,
his village was quite damaged with the escalation, the strikes. And for me, it's been also about the team. Most importantly, is how can we all survive of this together? One reaction could have been, for example, for me to stop or to reduce the whole team, or to maybe even run the place myself. This would be through lowest cost it can run. But I didn't want to go down that road. And so the team was very understanding with my, like the plan that we had put. And because we've also put it together, and because we talk about it together every time a new decision needs to be made, the first thing I had told them when the escalation started is that if there is any day where you don't feel that you have the energy or the motivation, or you feel that it's dangerous for you to come and open the shop, just don't come. And this is how much I trust them, because I can tell them such things, and they've been opening every single day, and they've been very understanding. Because I told them, I want you to also help me in the decision making. I want you to help me monitor how are people, at what time are people are coming, what are they ordering, what are they not ordering, should we adapt our closing and opening times? And as we've been adapting every week, I've been, asking them, like, what do you think about this new schedule? Is it okay for you? Do you feel safe? Do you feel okay with this? And, when you have a good relationship with your employees, these types of questions are very well received. And it's not, because the intention is very clear. It's like, we want to survive this together. Like, I don't want to put anyone in danger, but at the same time, I don't want you to stop working. I want us to continue the work. I want to be able to, pay salaries at the end of the month. And I think that for them also, it's also a blessing to be able to keep on working during times of war and having salaries. So we're kind of both in the same boat, and we just want to survive. it's not just that for them. I think it's not just a job where they are coming a few hours per day and getting paid, because it's also a place to escape a bit. It's a place to do something else
And be
and
productive.
be productive and also connect with people. And maybe we'll talk about this at some point, but because of the community and the customers that I have, who then became like friends, and they've really built a relationship with the baristas and with all the team. So they do come to see them sometimes, to talk with them, to chat about something, to show that you're not alone in this. So going to work in times of crisis sometimes is easier than just sitting at home.
Yeah, 100%. It sounds like this has brought your team closer together and that you've invited them into the decision-making process. I mean, as would be expected from somebody who runs a business like you run, which is another part of why I expect your business will survive through this process. People aren't just showing up for money. People are not just showing up so that they can, claim the paycheck and whatnot. It sounds like people have invested in your vision for what you're going to achieve with this business, with Levant. I find it very interesting that a business called Levant is achieving this. Anyone who understands the history of the region will understand the reference there, especially given what's going on in this region at the moment. And I'll just leave that there because we don't want to get political. We've talked about everything except for your customers. So in the next episode, folks, join us because we're going to talk about the customers and how they've responded to the changes around this business that seems to be so beloved. Join us in the next one. Peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, friends. Please don't forget to show us some love by subscribing, liking, commenting, and most of all, sharing this podcast with your friends. Check the show notes for links, including our sponsors and our Patreon, and stay tuned for more great conversations on the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward.